Yeah, Loatheb always gets me, regardless of what deck I'm playing. I just happen to always have a handful of spells. But game 2 is about to get underway right now. Superjj versus Muzzy.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see what Muzzy does going forward here in this match. And he's going to switch up to Druid here, which is something, you know what, I'm okay with this. I like this.
Yeah,
Muzzy.
Druid also faces off pretty well versus Handlock, and Superjj is just going to run it back, it looks like. Big Game Hunter not able to get it done in these early stages so far versus Muzzy, but that's a Twilight Drake I just saw. And so this one is, this one could be a pretty darn good one for Superjj. Very, very much stronger start than he had in the previous game.
Yeah, his start in the previous game, it was almost non-existent. He didn't have a lot of things going on. In fact, he was playing the top card he drew off his deck almost every turn in the middle of the game there. But Twilight Drake on 4, just what the doctor ordered.
Is going to be happy to see no Wild Growth, no Innervate. So this is one where Muzzy's going to have to fight a fair fight.
It's always the best feeling in the world when you're playing against a Druid deck, and on turn 2, they just, hero power and attack you. It's the best feeling.
Well, that's sort of like, that's not a very good feeling to me, though, going into turn 2, where you're like, I really hope they don't Wild Growth. That feels like the kind of deck that you should be playing, is the one that puts that fear into your opponents. I mean, turn 2 Wild Growth is not a big, big, big deal to be thinking about. You're like, oh, big deal, extra mana. But, the way the game pans out afterwards is really the pain of that one.
Well, the way that Druid has been panning out in all the games here in HPL, I'm very happy that I don't see Wild Growths or Innervates from them, because we've seen a lot of turn 3 Dr. Booms and Ragnaros.
We've seen some pretty crazy stuff.
We've seen some absolutely disgusting games from Druid so far.
Twilight Drake actually, Muzzy does have a Keeper of the Grove to deal with this, but this is putting a lot of pressure on his hand if he plays this Keeper of the Grove right now. I mean, does he just leave the Twilight Drake there? He is going to lose his Keeper of the Grove in the meantime if he chooses to do that, and I don't think he wants to trade into Shade right now.
No, he has a couple other options. What he could do is just Hero Power and Wild Growth, and then the turn after that, he could Keeper of the Grove and then use his Hero Power to take care of the Twilight Drake if he wants to do that, or something else happens, he can do, Druid of the Claw and taunt up or something from there. But it looks like he's actually just going to silence now.
Yeah, I don't mind the Keeper of the Grove right away. I mean, this is pretty much worst case scenario when you Keeper of the Grove with Twilight Drake is they get this trade in response. But Superjj's hand, I think he's pretty happy to see the first Keeper of the Grove come out here. And that usually means his second Twilight Drake's going to go completely unchecked.
Yeah, Twilight Drake just a great one here. But he's actually just going to Hellfire because this is the last chance he gets to pick off the Shade before it deals him damage.
Yeah, very, very strong draw from Superjj that turn. Shadow Flame wouldn't have been bad either, taking out both of them.
And now we see the Innervate drawn with Wild Growth still in his hand for Muzzy, and nothing to really abuse with these cards just yet. This was the turn that he needed to have a 7-drop for this Innervate.
Harrison Jones just going to come out. 5 mana, 5/4, still a threat to be played. And but Superjj, once again, he has plenty of ways to start fighting against this board position. I have to believe that Twilight Drake's going to be his option.
Yeah, you think Twilight Drake is just the best one here, not Sludge Belcher or Loatheb or anything like that,
I think there's definitely a big argument for those two minions because he can fit in the Twilight Drake with a life tap next turn. But he's got to be concerned with fighting off this board pressure. 5 damage is not anything that you can just scoff at in this position. You have to do something about it, and Twilight Drake's the one, in my opinion, that checks it the best.
Now, if you had something like Mortal Coil in your hand, would you just snap off playing the Sludge Belcher?
Yeah, I mean, Mortal Coil would really change the dynamic of the way this hand's built. And even just the 1/2 body that it leaves behind, that makes a big difference too. The fact that it can take out Harrison Jones. That is, of course, if your opponent doesn't play a taunt minion. So he has a couple things to think about with the way this turn actually looks in over the next couple turns. He's not just thinking about, do I play Twilight Drake, do I play Sludge Belcher? He's thinking about what happens on turn 6, what happens on turn 7, and seeing which one of those pans out better in every single scenario.
Yeah, every game that you see from Superjj, you always see that he thinks at least 2 to 3 turns ahead and really plans out.
Yeah, you can just see it in his face. I mean, he's very, very concentrated on tackling this one. And down a game, he doesn't have any room to misstep.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't have any room to misstep here. Now, Muzzy, he actually has the Druid of the Claw if he wants to protect his Harrison Jones from this Twilight Drake.
That seems like the best play to me. I mean, there's other options here as well, but I have to think that the defensive one's going to be best here because not only does the Druid of the Claw protect your Harrison Jones, but it also puts enough pressure on the Twilight Drake that Swipe will take it out in the next turn. So you get a double benefit from this. Plus, you get 2 extra health. It sticks around, from 1 Twilight Drake attack. So I think this is just easily his best line.
Yeah, it looks like this game's going to shape up being the second Dark Bomb drawn here from Superjj.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty important one right now. 2 Dark Bombs to take out a Druid of the Claw. You're not happy about it because you are using 2 cards, but you have to be happy about the fact that you can take out the Druid of the Claw and then take back initiative by running over the Harrison Jones.
Yeah, because he is at 19. If he starts taking any more damage from these minions, like if he were to take 5 more from this Harrison Jones, it puts him to that magic number of 14.
Yeah, 14 is one of the last spots you want to be versus a Druid deck. And Force Nature Savage are always a deadly combo. One of the reasons why it's such a powerful deck. And he recognizes that, just wants to get through these minions and keep the board on his side. You know, once he has the minions out, he's the one who's really dictating the pace of play. Even going to choose to just keep life tapping. Wants some extra options given that his hand is pretty low on utility, all things considered.
Yeah, he's also got, you know, Defender of Argus and Anti-Heal Bot in his hand to kind of recuperate these losses that have happened in the last couple turns. So getting the extra card, he's okay with that this turn.
Yeah, this is actually a really, really strong spot for Muzzy as well. You know, has Lotheb to play here, and then can innovate out to swipe, take care of the Twilight Drake. And then with Druid of the Claw and Savage Roar next turn, that's 9 plus 6 damage. That's 15 points of damage right there. Very, very close to hitting a lethal point. But he's just going to choose the hero power here, set JJ 1 point lower. Lotheb isn't checked right now by the Twilight Drake, so Superjj going to have to have something like a Defender of Argus or use 6 mana on a Mortal Coil if he wants to take care of it.
Yeah, that's not something he's really in the mind to have here. So I'm paying 6 mana for Mortal Coil just to get rid of a minion on the board here. So look for him to play a little defensive this turn. You know, something along the lines of Sludge Belcher or Defender of Argus or something along, you know, those lines, depending on how he wants to play going forward from here.
Yeah, I really don't mind Ancient Watcher, Defender of Argus.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Put some defense on the board, allow you to keep going into your late game turns relatively safe. But, you know, as always, wants to take his time and make sure he's not missing anything.
Yeah, you definitely want to take your time here because you're at 16 and you're and Muzzy just played Lotheb and attacked you with his hero power here with 5 cards in his hand. That is scary.
Yeah, I mean, that's a frightening hand to be looking at. To me, it kind of sends a signal that there's a lot of minions in his hand. I don't think Superjj is expecting something like Wild Growth to be still sitting in here. You know, Muzzy drew that on turn 3. It's been stranded in his hand the whole game.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we talk about too with professional players. Sometimes they'll make plays that look a little odd because they're trying to send mixed signals to their opponent so they can't get an exact read on the kind of hand they have.
Defender of Argus is going to be the play here.
Do you trade below that here? Or?
Wow, he's actually just going to set up his Ancient Watcher only. So a little bit of a risk being taken here by Superjj. Wants to make sure that he gets as much pressure as he can. And, you know, the fact that he wants to protect his Twilight Drake last turn, you know, he didn't see Wrath from Muzzy, and this was a very easy turn for him to Wrath, so I actually don't really mind this that much.
Yeah, that actually makes sense now that you talk about like the no Wrath play. I really like this play from Superjj.
Muzzy, you know, with Swipe in hand and Keeper of the Grove, this looks like another really easy one to me.
This feels like a really good chess match to me between these two guys right here.
Yeah.
They're going back and forth like, why did he do that one? Oh, why did he make this move? Because, you know, each player is playing a little, not strangely, but, you know, a little off norm here. And you're trying to figure out, what is that telling me?
Yeah, Muzzy's... I mean, this has to be this is such an aggressive play from Superjj. I don't really know exactly how he interprets this. I mean, Superjj isn't in the best position to just be pushing for damage.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you use the Keeper of Grove to push for damage, or do you attack here and use the swipe to clean up here, which I think is what's going to happen?
It's the second Keeper of the Grove. I'm sorry, it's the second Twilight Drake that you're killing here, so Keeper of the Grove, you know, his work is, at this point, pretty much cut out for him. You know, when are you going to find a better spot to actually use this?
Yeah, and what he's going to do here is going to take care of Superjj's entire board. Force of Nature is a lethal draw for Muzzy going forward from here.
But Superjj's got plenty of defense to add behind this one. You know, the fact that he's sitting at 15 right now and the taunt minions in his hand aren't really super strong against this kind of board, maybe Lotheb is actually where he's looking towards.
Yeah, there's a chance, you know, taking initiative away from Muzzy, if you think that's the kind of, you know, hand that he has going forward from here, if you think he's going to try to combo you out from here, doing something like Lotheb is a great play here because it gets you a 5/5 body on the board while contesting, you know, keeping him away from something like combo, and you can take the initiative back if that's what he's like leaning on for this game.
But what, you know, sort of again though, Muzzy's hand to me, from Superjj's perspective, feels like it's very minion heavy. So he has to do something to start fighting against this. He can't just play defense the entire time. So Lotheb, you know, feels right up the alley for that, but he is very concerned with, you know, keeping his life total protected. Just going to play Sludge Belcher here. Muzzy, oh wow, what a great draw from Muzzy this turn. I mean, is there a better one in the deck right now?
I'm not really sure. Maybe Black Knight?
Yeah, if it's in his deck. You know, Purple said he was playing with Black Knight in his Druid deck, so it's anyone's guess at this point. Wrath gets picked up. And so does Piloted Shredder. He's going to have a lot of pressure to add to this board. But
yeah, if
something
he wants to
else
shoot through the front half of this the Sludge Belcher, he can do that this turn with this Wrath.
He does need to think about how something like Shadow Flame is going to affect his board, though. Even something like Hellfire. You know, if he puts out too many minions, he opens himself up to those big kinds of swing turns that Handlock is always looking for.
So you're talking about, you know, the option that he has of innovating out this Piloted Shredder versus just doing something like Wrath the Sludge Belcher and attack it, which leaves over your Keeper of the Grove.
That was a Spectator bug continues to haunt us every single time someone plays Druid. We'll get this fixed as soon as we can.
You want choices? You got to give us half your screen.
Molten Giant picked up, but again, no Shadow Flame, nothing like that. I mean, this is starting to get This looks a lot like the road game where the pressure just continued to build at every single turn of the way, and Superjj didn't have a way to actually protect himself from very big combo turns.
Yeah, I mean, his hands have just not panned together the way he needs them. He's drawing Mountain Giants too early in the game when he doesn't have enough cards, when he's going to have to expend resources to take care of what Muzzy's doing, and he's drawing these Molten Giants a little bit too late for his own liking.
Yeah, initially here, this hand looked like it was going to have some trouble, but something like Hellfire, run Sludge Belcher into the Ancient Allure, play a Molten Giant, and then a Loatheb behind it, that's a very big turn. Is he thinking about something like Big Game Hunter, though? Like, his Big Game Hunter is going to absolutely close this game if he plays Mountain Giant this turn.
Oh, he's going to actually light tap again here.
Little cool to go with it.
Might be looking to add 2 Giants to his board this turn.
Yeah, to me, this looks like it's going to end up being Loatheb and Molten Giant. If he played it this way, obviously wants to hold his Hellfire for a very critical point in the game, and Loatheb is going to protect him from big combos this turn.
Now, do you just pick off the Keeper of the Grove here, or he's actually going to push for damage?
I mean, this is something that he continues to do over and over again, is when he doesn't have what he feels an extremely favorable trade, he just makes these pushes for damage like this. Savage Roar, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's 11 damage. I think Muzzy just has lethal this turn. He can run the Pilot Shred over the first half of this body, use his face on the 1-2, and then he's got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage sitting out.
That's actually, that's
Muzzy spots this. This is lethal.
The old 8-mana Savage Roar to kill you.
You really have to always... So Sludge Belcher does kind of muck up your combat math, and he's just going to take his time to spot this here, but Superjj taking a little bit of a risk, and you can see that he's extremely frustrated with the way this panned out right now. And again, I don't really blame him for this scenario. Muzzy's hand felt like it was very minion-centric to me, and so he's kind of, putting his eggs in one basket here. If Muzzy's hand is very minion-centric, I think that this is the way he recovers the game, but this time, there's always got to be that fear of Savage Roar. If you get to those late stages of the game, your opponent can easily have one of those cards in their hand.
The thing I want to know there is how important was that 3 damage? If he just runs a Sludge Belcher into the Keeper of the Grove and then Mortal Coils it, he doesn't actually die from this play coming back from Muzzy. Right?
I don't think he dies from
he doesn't have enough to push through.
Yeah, because the Sludge Belcher's still alive at that point. He has to use his face to clear the front half of the Sludge Belcher, has to use one of his bodies to clear the second half of one. Maybe a little bit of a misstep from him there, but it's anyone's guess. If you guys want to take a look at this game and see for yourself exactly what happened, head over to pvplive.net and see the full breakdown from this one. Stats, how they played their strategies, everything they've done in their competitive histories is available on the website. That's a really important turn to look at, actually. And make sure that you're integrating that into your game as well. Don't, these minor missteps can cost players a lot in these situations. And not to say that Superjj is messing up a lot, but he's finding himself down 0-2, and he's got to do something to turn this back around. So they're making changes to their decks, and when we come back, Muzzy finds himself on match point for 3 straight games. And if Superjj is going to win, he has to win 3 games in a row. Don't go anywhere, guys. You're watching Hearthstone on PvP Live.